My name is Shea Barker, and this is Jace Chrysler, and we are the PCS Volcast.
We are proud UT students and lifelong Tennessee football fans, and, we're here to talk about some Tennessee football.
Just so happens that the Tennessee Vols are playing a game this Saturday against UT Chattanooga.
Today is Friday, which means tomorrow is the best day of the year. It's Tennessee football kickoff.
I mean, just the best day of the year. Christmas can't even beat it.
Mm-mm.
It's going to be at 12:45 Rocky Top time, and it'll be available on the SEC network.
So we are playing the Chattanooga Mocs tomorrow, and they're not bad. They're an FCS team. They're 8-5 last season, 6-2 in the SoCon. They're favored to win the SoCon this year under head coach Rusty Wright. That's an all-time name, if you ask me. And they're actually 10th in the preseason FCS poll, so we don't have a cakewalk tomorrow by any means.
It's easy to say that as Tennessee Volunteer fans, we are neglecting the FCS poll, but being 10th doesn't mean they're bad.
So why are they going to compete this year? It's because of their standout wide receiver, Javen Watley, or Nunu, as you might hear on the broadcast tomorrow. He's a 5'10", 167-pound standout receiver, and he was named to the FCS All-American second team. He had 55 catches for just under 1,000 yards last year and 9 touchdowns.
That kind of sounds like the stats of a Georgia receiver, but anyway.
Well, Georgia ain't no chat, but they also have their standout D tackle, Marlon Taylor. He's going to try to make life real hard tomorrow for center Cooper Mays and Dylan Sampson and the rest of our running back room. He's a 6'2", 317-pound nose tackle. He's a veteran senior, and he has 6.5 career sacks and 68 career tackles. That might not sound amazing for your best defensive lineman, but nose tackles are in there just to mess everything up.
No, I totally see how they could cause some disruption. But when you look at Tennessee, I mean, our two standout players are definitely Nico, who is 6'6", 215, and I mean...
What's his last name?
We're not going to worry about the last name. But I think we all know him as Nico.
Oh, yeah, the guy.
If you didn't know, he was actually a 5-star. The real question is, can he take Tennessee to the playoffs as a freshman? These are questions that we just aren't asking about Chat, and I think that is exactly why.
Oh, come on, be fair now. It's Chat. But I think the $8 million man can do it. I think that if he holds up his end of the bargain as a 5-star recruit, the rest of our team is just too talented not to take us to the promised land in the first year of the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you think about it, we could have gone last season, and maybe you want to blame Milton as to why. But at the same time, if we believe Nico is exactly what he's advertised to be, there's honestly no reason that he can't take us to the playoffs. And his stat line against Iowa wasn't exactly polarizing, but it was just good enough to win.
He did the job.
Not even just to win, but just, I mean, we blew him out.
We won that game on the defensive side of the ball. 35 points. Might look a lot for Iowa, but for Tennessee offense, that's another Saturday, if you ask me. I have 12 for 19, 151 yards in the air. It did the job, and that's all you want, a touchdown in the air. But he scored 3 touchdowns with his feet. That's not really something you see with every other quarterback. That's some upside that I think you get with Nico. That's not what I'm looking for. We have a strong enough running back room to get that done for us, but any means necessary.
I agree. I think it is a little bit cause for concern. When you look at, he was attempting 15 rushes. He had around the same amount of attempts passing. You kind of want to see a 5-star quarterback use the arm, but you'll take 3 rushing touchdowns any day. I mean,
to be fair, the reason why Iowa is ranked so high, which, we don't have to agree with, but it's because of their defense. They had a top-tier defense in the country, and although not all their guys played, they That's their strength, is defense. They were one of the only teams to have a above 500 record, I believe, scoring 13 or less points or 20 or less points, something crazy. So their defense definitely carried them. So
No, their defense was insane. But speaking of defense, I mean, we have an insane defensive player ourselves, James Pierce Jr. He's a little bit shorter than Nico, and not even that much heavier. But he is probably the fastest defensive lineman in the SEC, and he helps Tennessee have one of the best defensive lines in the SEC in general.
I think the SEC, is short-selling the Volunteers. I think he's the fastest, and I think he's the best defensive lineman in the country. I don't think there's much of a debate. Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, gives a good argument for that. But, I mean, James Pierce had a sack, he had a forced fumble, and a pick six against Iowa. You don't see defensive linemen getting pick sixes.
You don't.
So he's just insane. Now, there's a little bit of a question about his power. We are lining him up on the outside, so he's going to let his speed take him as far as he can. But he's a typical SEC powerhouse defensive lineman.
And I would say I think his power against the run game is going to be just strong enough for a team like Chattanooga. I think when we worry about his run game, it's more about the O-lines that he should be used to playing, like Bama, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the teams in the SEC are probably going to be able to compete with James Pierce's run ability. But we're talking about Chattanooga here. And just to give some comparison, for a team like Chattanooga, we've played UT Martin and Austin Peay in the past year, and James Pierce dominated both teams, and I think we can expect that this Saturday as well.
You don't find offensive tackles with the speed and agility to keep up with them. You just don't.
Yeah.
You don't. You hardly find that in typical FBS teams. So we should expect James Pierce and the Tennessee defensive line to really wreak havoc against the Chattanooga Mocs tomorrow.
Yeah, so after mentioning the top two impact players for each team, how can Chattanooga come out on Saturday, come into Neyland and win? What are the ways they can even do that?
That's a good question because it's going to be tough. But as every Tennessee fan knows, we have a few weaknesses. Our secondary, I believe, is a little bit underrated compared to what other people think. But that's how you beat us. You beat us in the air. We send a lot of pressure. That's what Tim Banks is known for. And we just haven't really had the guys in the back end to keep up with some receivers like Javen Watley. I'm a little worried about that matchup. But, Tennessee is known for their fast pace and their aggressive tempo, and Chattanooga has to match it. They can't get overwhelmed by our aggressive tempo, and they have to, I think quick passes are going to be the key. Don't let our defensive line wreak havoc. Get the ball early and often to Javen Watley and this really, really underrated receiving core, and trust your quarterback.
So one of the ways that Chattanooga can really get ahead and stay ahead in this game is treating Nico like a freshman quarterback. He is a redshirt, and he played against Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really think about it, the way to get into a freshman quarterback's head is the pass rush. You got to get him startled, uneasy. You got to take away his confidence. And Chattanooga could do that if they get to the quarterback in general.
I think if you're Chat, the dream scenario in the first quarter is to get the ball first, score, quickly. Don't let our pass rushers, I said, get to Chase Artropius, who's another all-time name, their quarterback, and then turn Nico over. As you said, he's a freshman quarterback. You got to throw different looks at him. It can be weird. It doesn't have to be normal, but throw different looks at him. Let your all-star defensive linemen wreak some havoc. And imagine you turn Nico over, it's 14-0 in the first quarter. That's not – like if you're looking up your scores on your phone, you're like, it's not normal for a, top 15 team in Tennessee to be down to Chat that early. So although Nico might have a lot of talent, he's still a little bit unproven, and that's what all Tennessee fans are wondering about this season.
Yeah, get into his head early and often. And I think additionally, if they can do that and they can make some splash plays on special teams.
Oh, yeah.
That could go a long way.
That's every coach's dream. I mean, what are you paying your special teams coach for?
Yeah.
To, if you're not blocking a punt every once in a while, making a long field goal, something to give your team more juice. And you really need that when you're playing a team like Tennessee.
And maybe Tennessee's not thinking about the special teams like Chattanooga could be.
Or like Alabama does, but we'll get into them later this year.
So let's talk about how Tennessee could win this game. I think it's a little obvious that Tennessee is the favorite.
Yeah.
But they still have to make sure that they stay true to how they win football games.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts on the line of scrimmage.
It does.
And I think I can proudly say the line of scrimmage is something that I am looking forward to seeing from Tennessee, the performance-wise. We have almost all seniors across the O-line. I don't see how Chattanooga can get to Nico if our O-line plays as one.
Yeah, and it starts with your leader center, Cooper Mays. He's been here for a while. He's the guy now. He's the leader of that O-line. I couldn't imagine what it would be like, first of all, to be a 300-pound O-lineman, and second of all, to play in that tempo as a 300-pound O-lineman. You have to keep the pace. You have to put the pressure. And that's where it starts, in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are conditioned to Tennessee offense, and Chattanooga, their players are not. That's how we win. Our O-line just doesn't play like normal O-line. Our O-line is they're tough on top of quick.
Mm-hmm.
Another way, though, speaking of Nico, I mean, Nico needs to show that his freshman – year is behind him, and that is by keeping the ball safe. He cannot have turnovers. He can't be. We want him to sling the ball, but not to the other team, and that will be one of the most important aspects of this game.
Yep, and I think under a Heupel offense, that's really a huge, probably the biggest point of emphasis when you have such a quarterback-friendly offense like Heupel's offense. Typically, the way our offense works is our quarterback is looking to one side of the field. Sometimes you see if the play is going to the right side, the receivers on the left don't even run a route. They just fake a block. They just kind of stand there. But, you're really drawing up specific plays for your quarterback. And when you have receivers like we do, we should move the ball. And, again, as long as Nico's safe with it. You're right.
And when we look at Tennessee's defense, really all our defense needs to do is stay consistent. We don't need any busted coverages against Chat. They do have two good receivers. We need to make sure that we keep them on the FCS level.
Yeah.
I don't want to undermine the FCS, but this is Tennessee football.
Anything can happen, man. We cannot take any game for granted. If we want to make the playoffs, we have to take care of business. So,
staying consistent is the way to do that.
Exactly.
Just like Nico cannot force turnovers to the other team, we need to make sure that our defense is not allowing the big plays to happen consistently. And I do trust that we won't let that happen.
Nico's a redshirt freshman quarterback, but I unfortunately have more confidence in him to be consistent in our defense. We have a little bit of seniority in our linebacking core with senior linebacker Keenan Peely. He is a tough, strong, quick linebacker, but he's going to lead this defense, and we're going to see how that goes. Same with our secondary. I think it is a little bit underrated. People, really get on our secondary. Incoming transfer Jermod McCoy from Oregon State is a huge bolster to that secondary, and I believe he's a sophomore, Ricky Gibson, who was the cornerback one against Iowa and held his own. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play. This is a good litmus test for them. And but you're right, consistency is key with our defense.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, this is not Tennessee's same defense as a few years ago. Our secondary might not be where we want it to be, but I think it's definitely improved. So now that we know exactly who the impact players are and the key aspects to winning the game for each side, for each team, let's talk about our predictions. What do you think the final score of this game will be?
I've been teetering a lot. We could very well come out and embarrass Chattanooga. Although I hope we do. The more research I've done on Chattanooga has, made me a little bit more unsure. At one point, I had a whopping 60-17. We put up numbers like that before, especially in 2022 with Hendon Hooker. But this is not a Hendon Hooker team. So, taking into account some of Nico's possible mistakes, I'm going to say a Tennessee win, 45-13.
No way.
We're going to put up points, and we're going to put up points, every game aside from, Georgia, we'll see. But this is Chattanooga we're talking about, so I'm going to say 45-13 Tennessee Vols.
I like that. I think that might just be perfect.
Well,
Let's think about this, though.
you got to choose another prediction, though. Come on.
Let's
now.
think about this. Alabama played them last year, and the score came out to be 66-10. And that is really weighing heavy on my mind when it comes to making this prediction.
That game was, I believe, the last regular season game, so, no cobwebs.
Right.
And I do believe that Chattanooga is a better team this year. They're returning
I agree.
their 6-year senior, Chase Artropius, as well as a possible record-breaking receiver, Javen Watley, this year. That could be a real Hendon Hooker to Jalen Hyatt level dynamic duo for the FCS.
Yeah, I completely agree. I see us really coming out hot in the first two quarters. But I believe that we let Chattanooga come up in the second half. I see them really turning it on, showing what they're capable of. And I'm going to go 45-24. Of course, UT on top. I don't see us losing this game in any possible way, but I do see us being a little disappointed by the outcome. Now, I wouldn't say 45-24 is a disappointing outcome, but you kind of want to see 60-0.
I mean, against any FCS team, against any team in general,
But this is the number 9th,
10, I believe, 10th.
number 10th ranked FCS team. It's not to be taken lightly. They are respectable. We just got to make sure that we play a clean game.
And I think, the last point on this game is all eyes are on Nico Iamaleava, our starting quarterback. What is he going to do this year? Like, truly, if he plays up to his potential, we are a playoff team. Yeah. We know what James Pierce will do. We know what Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, Dante Thornton, Chris Brazel, I think, is going to be a standout receiver all year this year.
Yeah.
But what is Nico going to do this year? And, we finally get a chance. I think the Iowa game felt like a kind of a bonus game for us, especially after we started to run away with it. But this game it's the start of a new era.
Yeah.
New 12-team playoff, new quarterback. What's it going to be?
I think we're mostly looking at Nico. This is
yeah.
Nico's game. We know, like you said, the defense is going to do its thing. The O-line is going to do its thing. Our receivers are going to do their thing. What is Nico going to do?
Yep.
But don't let this 24 fool you. I am confident in our defense. I just think
garbage time
touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they keep their starters in the entire time, and we don't, and that's the difference. So 45-24 is Shea's prediction, myself, and we got 45-13 for Jace.
Yep.
Those were our PCS predictions.
What's the PCS? What are you talking about?
I'm glad you asked. So the PCS is actually a platform where you can do something as simple as what we just did, but online. And all you have to do is click submit.
2 numbers. That's all you got to do.
2 numbers.
You predict the final score of a game at our website, thepcsonline.com. Register for a league, submit your prediction, and beat your friends.
Beat your friends.
I have not been the best fantasy football player in the world, but I have been good at the PCS. Now, what does that say about me? I don't know. But PCS is easy, it's simple, and you just got to predict 2 numbers. Follow your favorite team, just predict.
We'll see how well we stack up against each other after the game is played on Saturday at 12:30.
12:45 Eastern time.
At 12:45 Rocky Top time.
It won't be 12:45. They'll push it back. But
they will push it back. All right. Thank you so much. This has been the PCS Volcast. We hope to see you here next week against NC State.
Yep. Go Vols.
Go Vols.